Morning. Welcome to this regularly scheduled meeting of the Minneapolis City Council. My name is Barbara Johnson. I'm president of the council, and we have sometimes before our regular council meetings the opportunity to recognize some efforts in our community or individuals or work of our staff to better our city. And so this morning we would like to recognize the efforts of our Civil Rights Department in regard to Black History Month. So Ms. Corbell, why don't you come up and join me if you would, please? So I have a rather long resolution to read. So if you would be so kind as to hold that, okay?
It's a team effort.
Yeah. So Ms. Corbell is our Director of Civil Rights, and this is a resolution that is going to be passed later on in the meeting. This morning, we are passing a resolution honoring Black History Month, and it's sponsored by all council members. It says, whereas since 1926 and the creation of Negro History Week by Dr. Carter G. Woodson, the accomplishments of persons of African descent have been recognized each February. And whereas the month of February is observed nationally as Black History Month to share in the accomplishments Black Americans have made and continue to offer this nation. And whereas Black History Month acknowledges and honors numerous past and present educators, scientists, activists, pioneers, leaders, artists, inventors, entrepreneurs, and elders with special ceremonies and activities. And whereas in 2016, to celebrate Black History Month, the Minneapolis Department of Civil Rights introduced Future History Makers, a profile series featuring emerging and mid-career leaders from the Twin Cities African American community who share the department's ideals of advancing civil rights and removing barriers to equity. And whereas the department identified trailblazers in the areas of business, criminal justice, education, economic development, health, philanthropy, housing, and government, and defined them as future history makers. And whereas the department also recognizes the kinship of the work of future history makers to those who are legacy trailblazers. And whereas each week throughout Black History Month, we shine the light on dedicated leaders in the Twin Cities region and share the stories of those who are making a huge impact and inspiring future generations, as well as those who have come before as legacy leaders. And whereas to support and foster our own future history makers in the City of Minneapolis enterprise, a new employee resource group for those interested in building, recruiting, and supporting Black employees, a City of Minneapolis Human Resources pilot program, the Minneapolis Black Employee Network was formed and will have its inaugural kickoff on Thursday, February 23rd, 2017, with a meeting and a social network gathering. And whereas affinity groups offer employees the opportunity to collaborate with colleagues and increase awareness and sensitivity to differences throughout the organization and help improve workplace culture. And whereas the new Minneapolis Black Employee Network will offer Black City employees peer support, mentoring, professional development, career counseling, and well-being supportive services. And whereas the Minneapolis Black Employee Network will offer the City of Minneapolis recommendations on action steps to support, retain, and recruit Black leaders to the city's workforce. And whereas each year we will continue to highlight dedicated Black leaders in the City of Minneapolis and the Twin Cities region, now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Minneapolis that we commemorate the achievements of Black Americans as future history makers and legacy leaders and their role in the development and history of the region and the nation. And we join in recognizing the annual celebration of Black History Month and the creation of the Minneapolis Black Employee Network. And the council will act on this later in the meeting. So I'll turn it over to Velma to explain. But you need the mic, though.
Well, no, you need
okay.
to hold
Oh,
it.
I hold it for you. Okay.
I'm gonna put my glasses on.
All right.
I just needed
This
one
is-
hand. And then I will take
right,
it. Thank
all
you
right.
very much. So good morning to all of you. My name is Velma Corbell, and as Barb said, I am the director in the Minneapolis Department of Civil Rights. And we are here, as you've just heard, to honor and celebrate Black History Month. And we have a threefold purpose this morning. The first is to acknowledge our deep appreciation for our elected leadership, thank you very much, and staff who recognize the importance of continuing to honor the stories, the history, and the legacy of Black people. We're also here to celebrate the warm and wonderful support that we've received from the community for our Future History Maker Profile series. And we're also here to lift up African and African American employees inside the city enterprise who as a group are future history makers. So I want to say thank you to Council President for sponsoring the resolution honoring Black History Month. You have my deepest respect for pausing this morning to take the time to recognize the central role of Africans and African Americans in our city's history and in U.S. history. If you have not been told how meaningful this celebration is to us, I want to pause today and say to you that it is extremely meaningful to people, as you can see from the people who have gathered in the chambers this morning. So I want to say thank you again so much to the Minneapolis City Council for your continued support of this celebration. At its core, Black History Month is about storytelling. And while the City of Minneapolis and the Civil Rights Department have always celebrated and acknowledged Black History Month in some way, last year we stepped it up. And we chose the month of February to recognize emerging and mid-career leaders in the region who share our ideals of advancing civil rights, removing barriers to building community, and serving as an inspiration to future generations. In the profile series, we match these future history makers with legacy leaders, the individuals on whose shoulders we stand. In the stories we tell, we commend the future history makers and we pay tribute to those whose example we follow. This year, we've identified 11 individuals in various sectors, as you heard the Council President talk about, and I want to extend a special thank you to the city's communications department and to our external partners, KMOJ Radio, Insight News, and the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder, and anyone else that has ever copied, pasted, posted, or shared any of the profiles on our social media, from our social media outlets. And in closing, without saying too much again, because I know there's a planned, more formal acknowledgement in the coming weeks of the employee resource groups, I know and see that there are employees in the room who are African and African American that have been working together in response to the Human Resources Department's employee engagement strategies. The Minneapolis Black Employee Network is part of the Human Resources Department's Employee Resource Group pilot program. And MBEN, as it likes to be called, was developed by Black city employees to enhance employee work experiences through networking, professional development, and support. At the City of Minneapolis, we grow our own future history makers, and this group came together for a common purpose: to support the city's objective of recruiting and retaining a diverse, talented, and engaged workforce. So I found this quote from Dr. Josie Johnson in a story that Gary Cunningham wrote about her when they were celebrating her 80th birthday together. And in it, Dr. Josie says, "We need to ensure that young people learn from the hard-fought wisdom and experiences in the struggles and victories gained over many years." And that's why we choose February, Black History Month, to tell our stories and to recognize our present-day leaders and those on whose shoulders we stand. And there's some people in the room. I know that Jeff Hassan and Narita Hughes are here from the African American Leadership Forum, and I wanted to thank them for taking time out of their busy morning this morning and sharing the celebration with us. So thank you so much. So thank you.
Thank you. I want to do a particular shout out to Jennifer White in my office, who authored the resolution, and she's a little wordy though, I have to. But anyway, thank you all very much for joining us this morning, and we'll commence with our regular city council meeting. Thank you so much. I'm going to call this regularly scheduled meeting in the Minneapolis City Council to order. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Reich.
Here.
Bender.
Here.
Glidden.
Here.
Yang.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Quincy.
Here.
Warsami.
Present.
Goodman.
Present.
Fry.
Here.
Palmisano.
Present.
Gordon.
Here.
Kano.
Here.
President Johnson.
Here.
There are 13 members present.
We have all members present this morning. Next item on the agenda is adoption of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
The agenda's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Fry, did you have a motion?
Thank you, Madam President. On notice of ordinance introductions, item number 2, there needs to be a bit more community engagement and coalition building before we introduce, and therefore I will move to delete.
Okay, Councilmember Fry has moved to delete item number 2 under the notice of ordinance introductions. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in approval say aye.
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 Opposed? That carries. Then on the adoption motion as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in approval say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Next, we have the acceptance of the minutes of the regular meeting of January 27th, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in approval say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Next, we have referral of petitions, communications, and reports to proper committees.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in approval say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. The reports of the standing committees are next, and the first is Committee of the Whole. That committee is chaired by the Council Vice President, Elizabeth Glidden.
Thank you. The Committee of the Whole has 3 items on the agenda for today. The first is authorization to join the local government amicus brief in Jennings versus Rodriguez. Second is passage of a resolution establishing the Transgender Equity Council. And item number 3 is the, directing staff to partner with organizations, external organizations, to pilot the 2017 Workers' Day at City Hall. I would move all 3 items, and then I wanted to make a brief comment on item number 2.
Councilmember Glidden has moved the Committee of the Whole report. Any discussion on any of those items? Councilmember Glidden.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and I want to thank Councilmember Andrew Johnson, who chaired the Committee of the, actually, he should have given the report, and I apologize. You said, you turned it to me, and then I just read it, so apologies, and I want to thank him for chairing the Committee of the Whole meeting. I was not there for the Transgender Equity Council presentation, and I just wanted to say thank you to community members and city and community members who have been part of the current transgender workplace group, and their recommendations are now moving forward in establishing this Transgender Equity Council, and we are now about to start taking applications for that group, and this is part of complying with some promises we have made to community about how to, in a more permanent and sustainable way, have a way to impact transgender policy at the City of Minneapolis. So thank you. Thank you to all.
Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a brief comment on item number 3.
Why don't you go ahead, please?
Thank you. This is the item regarding the 2017 Workers' Day at City Hall. This will be the first time trying out this event, and we have been considering it a pilot, so we'll see how it goes. But just wanted to briefly comment that I really want to invite all the council members and their staff to get as engaged as you'd like. We're planning this for March 18th, so the turnaround is a bit tight, but we've been working with a group of external organizations to identify some themes that are top of mind for workers in our city that are not just the very important discussions around workplace regulations such as paid sick time and the minimum wage, but issues around housing, our city's budget, public health, and other issues that are impacting folks in our city. And our staff that we've been working with in each of the departments that are most relevant, I think are all very excited to use this opportunity to get some good public feedback about things that are already happening. So that this has all been designed to sort of funnel feedback into existing processes like the comprehensive plan update or some of the work that our city staff are already doing in each of these areas. So thanks very much.
Any further discussion on any of those items on the Committee of the Whole report? I lost my computer here. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Glidden.
Aye.
Yang.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
Warsami.
Aye.
Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
Palmisano.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Kano.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That report is adopted. Next, we have the Community Development and Regulatory Services Report. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Goodman.
Thank you, Madam President. The Community Development and Regulatory Services is bringing 18 items forward for approval this morning. Items 1, 2, and 3 are land sales. Items 4, 5, and 6 are various license issues, as is item 7. 8 is a change in our low-income housing tax credit reservation, just transferring some tax credits to YouthLink so that YouthLink can get off the ground. It was a very generous act by Aon, who deferred a portion of their allocation. Item 9 is a bond entitlement issue at Sewer Towers. 10 is the Great Streets Facade Improvement Program. 5 organizations are getting contracts to do facade improvement. 11 is an exclusive development rights agreement with Build Wealth Minnesota for the development of single-family homes. Item 12 are the program guidelines for our new infill development, new construction homes. Items 13, 14, 15, 16 are accepting grants for various projects and programs. Item 17 is a rental license reinstatement, and item 18 is a contract with the University of Minnesota for traffic management around their stadium. With that, I'll move items 1 through 18 for approval this morning.
Councilmember Goodman has moved the Community Development Regulatory Services Report. Any discussion on any of those items? Seeing none, clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Glidden.
Aye.
Yang.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
Warsami.
Aye.
Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
Palmisano.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Kano.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That report is adopted. Looking ahead here. Next, we have the Health, Environment, and Community Engagement Committee report. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you, Madam President. The Health, Environment, and Community Engagement Committee is bringing 3 items forward for consideration today. The first is approving the Nicollet Island East Bank NRP Phase 2 Action Plan. The second is approval of the West Calhoun NRP Phase 2 Neighborhood Action Plan. I'll just note that these are the last 2 NRP Phase 2 action plans to be approved. After this, then all neighborhood action plans for Phase 1 and Phase 2 will have been approved. And the third item is a more significant item, and that's restoration of the Phase 2 Neighborhood Revitalization Program funds. And it's authorizing finance and property services and neighborhood community relation departments to allow neighborhood organizations to contract up to 100% of their approved NRP Phase 2 allocations. And also passage of a resolution to transfer roughly $3.3 million of revenues from the Consolidated Tax Increment Finance District this year to the NRP fund. Ultimately, over the course of the next 4 years, a little bit over $9 million will be reallocated back to neighborhoods. And I will move all 3 items forward for approval.
Councilmember Gordon has moved the Health, Environment, and Community Engagement report. Anyone care to discuss any of those items? Councilmember Goodman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make a brief comment on item number 3.
Why don't you go ahead?
I just wanted to thank the council president for bringing this item forward. Truth be told, no one was thinking about this. Quite frankly, neighborhoods didn't even think they were ever going to get this money back. It takes someone who has a good understanding of the city's budget and finances to understand when things like opportunities like this could become possible. Although my ward is not receiving a massive amount of money, primarily because neighborhoods in my ward spent their NRP money in a very timely and efficient fashion, I do think that this is keeping up with the promise that we made. If the tax increment revenues came in, then we would be able to move forward. And I think given that there isn't an NRP program going forward, it's important for those of us who were here during that time, and many of you were not, so it's not your fault, that we froze this funding, and it's important that we give the money back if we're able to do so. And I just wanted to note that while no one else was thinking about it, Council President Johnson was thinking about it and quite frankly made it happen. So I appreciate her work on this, as do neighborhoods in my ward, and I'm strongly supporting it today, mainly in an effort to keep faith with neighborhoods who didn't believe that we would do this if we were able.
Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you. I just wanted to add and express, share my thanks to staff who brought this forward. What actually happened was it was clear from the tax increment financing district this year that we were bringing in a lot more revenue than we'd anticipated. And David Rubador brought to my attention that we already had $10 million in excess revenues that we could dedicate to this. And I want to give some credit, certainly echo Councilmember Goodman's accolades to the council president for taking a lead on this also. But Councilmember Reich and I and the council president met about this once we discovered it. And then really it was finance staff who helped put a lot of this together so that we could understand how it could work, and ended up coming up with, I think, a reasonable and prudent plan to make sure that we're able to do this while meeting all our other obligations from the tax increment financing district. I encourage people to check out the staff report. It's a little bit more complicated than what I just read.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, I want to thank my colleague, Councilmember Glidden, who was here too when we actually took this action, and at the time was one of the people that said we will look back and revisit this, and as I look at the neighborhoods that I represent in North Minneapolis, I think people spent their money very wisely and prudently, and I'm proud of how the dollars were allocated through these neighborhood associations. But they also were, as a result of the NRP program, just getting going, and I think suffered a little bit from lack of capacity in getting the money out the door. And so they were some of the hardest hit neighborhoods as far as their funds being frozen. So I know they'll put the dollars to good use. Again, housing is our biggest issue in North Minneapolis, and we have great opportunities. Just earlier in our agenda, we have infill housing to deal with some of the empty lots we have, and so I know there's great opportunities, again, to spend those dollars wisely. So I'm pleased this is coming forward today. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Bender. Glidden.
Aye.
Yang.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
Warsami.
Aye.
Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
Palmisano.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Kano.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That report is adopted. Next, we have the Intergovernmental Relations Report. That committee is chaired by the Council Vice President, Elizabeth Glidden.
Thanks, Madam Chair. We have two items that we'll be moving today. The first is a change to our city policy positions for our 2017 legislative agenda to include a statement that the city of Minneapolis supports the rights of all people to engage in protected First Amendment speech, assembly, and protest without the burden or of risk of civil liability for public safety response costs. Item number two is passage of a resolution condemning the January 2017 presidential executive orders on immigration and refugees, and I'm going to be moving with that item a slight change to one of the resolve clauses to add the phrase contrary to internationally recognized human rights standards as part of one of the resolve clauses, and that's in front of you. And then in addition to that is a staff directive relating to work around Sanctuary City Task Force, work with city staff and the Minneapolis Foundation to create a local immigration legal defense fund, and also directing the city attorney in cooperation with the mayor to review the president's executive orders for the purpose of potential litigation defense strategies to protect the rights of the city of Minneapolis and its residents. And so I will be moving both of these items, including the slight change to the resolved clause of the of the resolution.
Councilmember Glidden has moved the Committee of the Whole report. The Intergovernmental Relations report. Any discussion on any of those items? Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to thank Councilmember Glidden and the others who helped put together the meeting at Intergovernmental Relations, and with all the testimony and organizing that. It was very helpful. I came, and I know that several other council members came who aren't actually on the committee. Also, that we were able to have before us now such a well-thought-out resolution and also the creation of this task force. I think it just shows we are being very nimble, we're able to act quickly, and we're doing what we can to respond to some of the deeply concerning actions at the federal level.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Glidden.
Aye.
Yang.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
Warsami.
Aye.
Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
Palmisano.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Kano.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That report is adopted. Next, we have the Transportation and Public Works report. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Reich.
Thank you, Madam President. The committee forwards 12 items today for approval. Item 1 is the Downtown Business Improvement Special Service District Code Amendment to the petitioning requirement. Item 2 is the Residential Recycling Grant Agreement with Hennepin County. Item 3 is a request for proposals for mattress collections and recycling services. Item 4 is the street easement deed from Hennepin County Housing and Redevelopment Authority for a portion of 2225 Lake Street East. Item 5 is an agreement with the City of Edina for 54th Street West Reconstruction Project Infrastructure. Item 6 is agreement with the Urigan Construction Company for Nicollet Mall art restoration and reinstallation. Likewise, item 7 is a contract with Skyrim Studio for Nicollet Mall art project program. Item 8 is the contract amendment with Meyer Contracting Incorporated for wetland habitat restoration for the Nicollet Mall reconstruction project. Item 9 is amendment with the Thomas & Sons Construction for 7th Street North reconstruction. Item 10 is a contract with Concrete Idea Incorporated for sidewalk repair program. Item 11 is the Metropolitan Council Irving Avenue Sanitary Sewer Cleaning Project. It's agreement with that agency. Item 12 is the bid for construction for concrete sidewalks, curbs, gutters, and alleys, and driveway approaches for the coming year. With that, Madam President, I move all items.
Councilmember Reich has moved the Transportation and Public Works report. Anyone want to pull anything off or discuss any of those items? Seeing none, clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Glidden.
Aye.
Yang.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
Warsami.
Aye.
Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
Palmisano.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Kano.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That report is adopted. Next, we have the Ways and Means report. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Quincy.
Thank you, Madam President. Ways and Means will bring forward 14 items for consideration this morning. The first 4 items are all legal settlements. Item number 5 is an agreement with Your Cause for software for the Support Workplace Giving campaign. Item 6 is the Creative City Challenge. It's a temporary public art commission installation. Item number 7 is a gift acceptance from Clear Channel Outdoor for display time. 8, contract amendment with Ebert for the Hamilton School renovation project. Item number 9 is a low bid for Minneapolis Convention Center, the wall sconce replacement project. Item 10 is the contract amendment with Sierra Cedar for continued enterprise land management system training. We also have a contract with Geocom for the police department mapping services. Item number 12 is the 2017 National Forensic Sciences Improvement Grant acceptance. Item 13 is the joint powers agreement with Minneapolis Police Department, the Department of Public Safety, and the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension to conduct state and federal fingerprint-based background checks. And the final item is number 14 is a North Metro I-35W corridor joint powers agreement. Move all 14 items for approval.
Councilmember Quincy has moved the Ways and Means report. Any discussion on any of those items? Seeing none, clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Glidden.
Aye.
Yang.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
Warsami.
Aye.
Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
Palmisano.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Kano.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That report is adopted. Next, we have the Zoning and Planning Committee. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Madam President. We have just 2 items from Zoning and Planning this cycle. Item number 1 is approving 3-year terms for reappointments for 3 individuals to our Zoning Board of Adjustment. We're very thankful for all of their hours of volunteer work. And item number 2 is approving a rezoning from R1A to I1 to allow for minor automobile repair in an existing building at 110 Russell Avenue North. I will move both items.
Councilmember Bender has moved the Zoning and Planning report. Any discussion on either of those items? Seeing none, clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Glidden.
Aye.
Yang.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
Warsami.
Aye.
Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
Palmisano.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Kano.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That report is adopted. Next, we have the notices, and the first is a notice by Councilmember Kano, who gives notice of intent to introduce at the next regular meeting of the City Council the subject matter of an ordinance amending the code relating to administration, employee authority, and immigration matters, clarifying policy intent and adding further provisions related to administration. That notice is given. Number 2 is deleted from the agenda. So the next we have our introduction and referral calendar. The first is a motion by Councilmember Goodman to introduce the subject matter of an ordinance amending the code relating to Title 14, liquor and beer, for first reading and referral to the Community Development Regulatory Services Committee, amending provisions related to temporary on-sale liquor licenses. Any discussion on that introduction? Seeing none, all in approval say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Next, we have resolutions, and the first is the 2017 World Kidney Day honorary resolution, passing a resolution declaring March 9th, 2017 World Kidney Day in the city of Minneapolis. Any discussion on that resolution? Seeing none, all in approval say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Next, we have a passage of a resolution, the Loretta Maine honorary resolution, passage of a resolution honoring Loretta Maine for her service to Hale Elementary School. Any discussion on that resolution? I've lost my computer screen, so I can't see. All in approval say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Next, we have the 2017 Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Week honorary resolution, passage of a resolution recognizing the National Multiple Sclerosis Society's MS Awareness Week in Minneapolis. Any discussion on that resolution? Seeing none, all in approval say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Next, we have the Black History Month honorary resolution that we talked about before the council meeting. Any discussion on that resolution? Seeing none, all in approval say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Announcements are next. Are there any announcements? Councilmember Yang. Oh, no, sorry. Any announcements? No announcements. All right. Next motion then would be a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in approval say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Thank you all very much. Good job.